taken on in all the communities. Village of Americas has them, Portsmouth has them, Town of Rise has them, for fire service, for garbage, for anything that that we can probably study. I think it's been done historically, and the failure that we've seen from prior administrations is that they haven't taken an actionable item and they haven't implemented anything. Okay, and we don't want to waste taxpayers' money. So I think the commitment that I would want to have from the board, and obviously from the other municipalities and their board members, is that if there is a solid, actionable item that is going to save the taxpayers' money, that we're prepared to make the decision. So that's the commitment that I'd be looking for. Why go through the trouble of a study and waste our time and waste the taxpayers' money if we're not going to implement something at the end?
Well, I think that's absolutely right, and I'll give Mayor Appel an opportunity to comment as well, but I think that's absolutely right. I mean, you know, we ran on a campaign where we said we want to fundamentally change the tax dynamic. And we're for me, I think we have for me, this is the signature issue for at least for me and for our board. And so I would be disappointed if by the end of 2011 or going into 2012, if we can identify an actionable item, I would be very, very disappointed if at least this board didn't move forward with that actionable item. Number one. Now, my expectation, and we talked about this, is if you dissolve the village of Rybrook, if you dissolve the village of Portchester, you merge the town of Rye with the city of Rye, you more likely than not you'll have a bigger economic base over which you can get economies of scale, and you could have greater expense savings and reductions. But I don't think there's much political will for that. And so I think it's a combination of the economic restructuring potential and people's willingness to change. And I think that in terms of people's willingness to change, the most likely scenario in terms of political feasibility is the elimination of the town of Rye. And I do think potentially there can be some savings, but we need, that's why we have this professional study. And now, by the other way, I also don't want the town of Rye employees who worked very hard this week, and I want to talk and work very hard throughout. I think that there's a way to accommodate them as these services are picked up by their municipalities. Mayor Phil, did you want to comment?
Sure. You know, Supervisor Carbon actually, and Deputy Supervisor Villanova, I think, Joe, your point is well taken, the last point, that when you look at how we would act on something like this, first of all, there's a structured approach that would be followed to look at what are the activities that would be required, what is the fiscal impact, the costs and benefits, both one-time and recurring, to consider dissolving the county. At the end of the day, there's a deliverable. If you look on page, what is it, page 17 of the draft application, there's a column that has the deliverables, and basically at the end of analyzing the Rye Town dissolution analysis, the Village of Rybrook and Village of Portchester coterminous town-village analysis, and then the Rye Neck alternatives, there's going to be a report, and required from this grant is public participation. So we have to have public sessions. Let's say there is an opportunity and we do want to move forward. What those actions would be a resolution of our respective bodies and requesting county legislature to take an action to dissolve the town. And I believe it involves a vote of the people as well. So we can't just unilaterally decide ourselves to do this without calling the people to a vote, if all of the parties agree. So the steps, it's not all within our control, I guess is my point. I think I speak for Mayor Feinstein in her personal commitment in wanting to see this not to be some shelfware kind of a thing, but really to see if it is something that we can take action on to really improve the tax dynamics and to write history in a very positive way.
But I think the other point is, we can pat ourselves on the back for once, or maybe for too many times, but we're the governmental entity dissolving itself, or the governmental entity working itself out of a job, which is highly unusual. And so I think we are at the forefront of this particular actionable item. And if we decide to do that, I think that gives us a much better chance of happening. So I think in many ways, it's this board that really is driving the process and making it possible.
And that's the very reason you're the lead the lead applicant,
Right.
the lead agency on the application. That's exactly right, the center of the story, actually.
Good. Any other questions, please?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. In here it says that you're talking about creating coterminous town villages of Portchester and Rybrook. Are you aware that there were several studies studying exactly that, coterminous Rybrook?
Yeah, I mean, basically,
town,
yes.
And I believe Portchester.
Well, Mayor Feinstein and I agree. Well, Rybrook certainly did it. It was an ad hoc citizens committee. If you look at the first three sentences, they said that the previous administration was very stingy giving them information, and what information they got wasn't terribly coherent in any case.
And Councilman, that's one of the reasons why Rybrook is so supportive of this. I think it was 2002 that the village of Rybrook went, 2004, thanks, went through a coterminous town village study, and really what they concluded is we need a professional to help us with this.
Yeah.
And that's really part of it, that we want to bring in somebody to have,
Didn't Mamaroneck Village do the same thing?
in
Yes.
2007,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so to the extent that that
And
study...
they actually exactly, and they're happy to have this study for much the same reason. In other words, they're saying, well, what harm does it do? And, again, you raise the issues, you're thinking about them differently, and we're very hopeful we're going to get a good professional group in that, sort of nails these down. Again, with our support, I think you have a very different dynamic.
Yeah, Mayor Feinstein explained that the Citizens Committee, while they did a great job, it didn't dig deep enough, so it was inconclusive at best. And in the case of the Mamaroneck study, which was done by Pace in 2007, it didn't go through, first of all, it was one-sided. It only dealt with the Mamaroneck options. It didn't look at the totality of the disposition of the Rye-town assets, nor the action steps that would be needed to take it to actually dissolve the town. So what we plan to do is to leverage the 2007 study specifically from Mamaroneck. Absolutely, because there's a lot of useful information there, right?
And
But,
I need to waste more government money
and
studying
augment
something that's
it.
been studied.
Right.
But no one studied the dissolution of the town of Rye.
Wow.
No.
In effect.
No one has. I mean, no one.
And
You know what, Mr. Supervisor, you're right. And ultimately, a lot of studies were done, they were one-sided. They addressed one community and did not address the effects of several communities. And obviously, we need to package this in a way that if this is going to be this actionable step, and this is going to be presented to the residents of all of these communities, that it has to show the effect of Ryeneck, of Portchester, and of the village of Rybrook. So, yes, the studies were done, but they were one-sided, they were inconclusive, and this is, I believe that this is unique. And,
they didn't speak to for instance, the disposition of Crawford Park or Rye Town Park. And to the extent that only a portion of Mamaroneck Village, for instance, enjoys access to those parks, an outcome of this might be a benefit to the village of Mamaroneck, even though they may have, the tax dynamics really weren't even studied in total there because they didn't look in detail at the redistribution. Councilperson Mendocino, though, asked who would be conducting this study. And if I may just draw your attention to the project approach, what we're proposing to do is to establish a project steering committee where each respective municipality would appoint elected professional people in addition to citizens to sit on not an unwieldy size, we have to figure out the right size, project steering committee. We would draft an IMA, an intermunicipal agreement, amongst ourselves that are really the rules of engagement. And then we would solicit through an RFP, a competitive request for proposal process, to hire an experienced objective third-party consultant. The consultant would be brought on board, would finalize the details, objective, scope, approach, milestones, budgets, and deliverables, and develop a project communication, a formal framework that committee could basically communicate to each respective body, as well as the general public, of the process along what's probably a 12 to 18-month journey. And then, as